if you buy a property on an assumption, you're doing that seller a huge favor. That guy ought to be kissing your behind at the closing table to get you, because one of the things about an assumption is the replacement reserves. So if this guy has been owning the property for the last 3 to 5 years, and he's been banking the replacement reserves, instead of using it to build up his collateral and protect the collateral, he's been banking it. Now he's got $100,000 in the replacement reserves.
Welcome to the How to Scale Commercial Real Estate Show. Whether you are an active or passive investor, we'll teach you how to scale your real estate investing business into something big.
Charles Dobens is the multifamilyattorney.com, the founder of the Multifamily Investing Academy, and the creator of Multifamily OS program for entrepreneurs looking to build a successful multifamily real estate investing business. Charles, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. First off, is that a real background or is that one of those virtual ones? I love it. You see, when I'm in my studio, I've got the real thing too. And I go back and I grab those books off the back because, and I hold them up. So yeah, so that's cool. I like it.
Thanks, man. You know what it does though, is that on days like today where I walk in the office and I set stuff on the shelf behind me,
you forget
background, you don't have stacks of papers in.
No.
Now you just reminded me that I got garbage on my shelf. Thanks for that.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And the thing is, I have part of my program for my students is they get a virtual assistant, and so we do a virtual assistant meetup every Monday morning just to touch base with all my VAs. And I look at their backgrounds, I think, wow, those guys live larger than I do. They have beautiful places behind them. Like, no, they don't.
No, they
really don't.
That's fake.
No,
Charles, there's three questions I ask every guest who comes on the show. Where did you start? Where are you now? How did you get there? But tell me in less than 90 seconds.
Okay. Where did I start? Geographically, I'm out here in the Boston area. Always wanted to own multifamily property. Was running an insurance company, had about 35 employees, going to put me in an early grave, hated it, told my wife, I can't do this anymore. What do you want to do? I want to own apartments. Went out there and started owning apartments, did incredibly well. Market crashed, kept some, lost some. That's when I started practicing law. I was a lawyer beforehand, but I was representing clients of mine, friends of mine who were losing their property. And I realized, man, why did you buy this property in the first place? This property you never should have acquired because it's a dog. And then I realized, man, these people are being taught the wrong way to run multifamily, own and operate multifamily. And that's when I started coaching and mentoring. And I got to tell you, I own plenty of properties. I don't need to work, but this is my calling. I love helping people in this field with my law practice, with consulting, I just got off the phone with one of my clients working on a deal. We're going to make an offer on a property today. I am just always involved in all of my students' deals, making sure they do everything right every step of the way. And where do I want to go? I want to buy 1,000 properties for my students, meaning I want, not 1,000 units. I did that a long time ago. I want to do 1,000 properties for my students over the next 10 years. And that is my goal. That's what gets me up in the morning and makes me run.
That is awesome. I love it. 1,000 properties, 1,000. So it's only, what is that? 8 per month, 8.5 per month.
Yeah. But the thing is, I've been doing this for 10 years. So I got kind of a little head start on the 1,000 goal, so, but when I'm 82, when I hit 82, 10 years from now, Sam, I want it to be, I'll be at 1,000. So
that's awesome. I love it. Tell me about this. You said in 08, you owned.
Sam, hold on a second. If you do the math there, pal, 10 years from now, I'm going to be 82. That means I'm 72 today, right?
I'm with you. I'm not going to make any comment.
I know. Well, you can't tell me I look good for 72. You should be saying, what you're telling me now by not saying anything is like, oh, all right, 72. Yeah. Okay.
Rode hard, put away wet, Charles. That's what I'm thinking, buddy.
That is such a Nashville expression, pal.
Hey man, I'm here in the South and I'm in Tennessee. Tell me about this. In 08, you owned apartments. You kept some, you lost some. Yeah. What happened?
Oh man, the market crashed. The thing is, we bought them all the right way at that time. It was the height of the market. We never missed a payment on anything in all the time that we owned the property. but the cap rates were compressed to begin with. And then when the market turned, when Fannie and Freddie filed bankruptcy and the world collapsed, the cap rates started to inch back up and inch back up. And that's when we, when the terms were done on some of these properties, we couldn't refinance, would have to go back and raise more money just to refinance it. And we just, non-recourse loans, which is the only way to go. We just dropped them on the bank's desk and, shook hands and parted friends. And fortunately, that's one of the nice things about multifamily investing is, while these other single family home owners were losing their shirts, it's a business, and we just moved on to the next deal. So.
Yikes. So that was how you got caught, because you were able to make your debt payments all the way up until you couldn't refinance out of shorter term debt.
Right. And so, that's what's going on now. You're looking at some of these cap rates and the compression of these cap rates, and they can't compress anymore.
Right.
Now we're starting to see inflation, interest rates go up, and people's investment strategies right now is only hoping the market continues to do what it's been doing for the last 10 years. Mm-hmm. And that's not going to, as Paul Moore says, trees don't grow to the sky. At some point, there's going to be an adjustment. And these people are going to get caught the same way I was.
Is there a type of financing that you're afraid of right now?
Oh, well, you see these interest onlys where there's no amortization. Okay, that's fine. But you're seeing the interest rate starting to creep up. It's really not any type of financing. It's just not underwriting conservatively enough, not stressing your underwriting such that your deal is going to survive if cap rates start to release and when interest rates start to go up. If your deal can't survive that, you might want to just step back and wait.
What are you on an exit cap? What are you having people plug in as a general number right now?
Well, general number is about 10 basis points per year. So, if you're going to hold it for 5 years, you're looking at least a half a percent higher cap rate. That's like textbook. That's like just right out of the gate textbook. But what you have to think about is interest rates are going up. We already know that. Right. Now, I see some of these gurus out saying, well, that's okay. You're locked in at this particular interest rate. It's not you that's going to have the problem. It's the person you have to sell the property to that is going to have the problem. And that problem is going to become yours. If they can't purchase that property at the valuation that you created your exit strategy at, you're going to lose. And, I tell you, I don't know if you, Cornelius Cannon, he has this event called the Shark Pool. And I'm one of the sharks where I evaluate other people's deals. These guys get on there and start talking about their portfolio, and they're talking about this new deal coming up. And they say, "Yeah, we have property in Lexington, Kentucky, blah blah." And I'm looking at on the screen. I'm looking at the property. I said, "Wait a minute. What's that property right there?" "Oh yeah, that's a property in Lexington." I said, "Oh." And then the guy goes on to say, "Well, yeah, we've really stressed it, but we don't feel as though interest rates will climb so much that it'll really devastate the property. We still think everything's going to be fine." And I just felt like the old guy. I said, "Okay, let me tell you a story." I said, "Back in 2008, a month before Fannie and Freddie went bankrupt, I purchased a 222 unit apartment complex in Lexington, Kentucky." And right away, Sam, you could see both of their eyes like bug out because they knew I'm talking about their property. I said, and they said, "Did you buy Preakness?" I said, "I own that property right before it crashed. Nobody saw anything coming. I had to give that property back to the bank." And as I'm on the call, the Shark Pool with them, I'm pulling up the CoStar report, and you can clearly see I bought it for $7.5 million, gave it back to the bank. They sold it to somebody for $3 million a year later. That guy sold it to these guys like 3 years later for $7 million. So that guy, between me and them, walked away with $4 million in the bank because he was patient and he waited. And sometimes, I look at that deal, I think I lost my shirt on that deal, and this guy made $4 million. It's crazy. So.
What were those buyers, other than paying $7 million for? What other things did they not take into account besides rising interest rates?
Oh wait, those people, the people that were on the Shark Pool. Well, no, I don't know when they bought it for the $7 million. They could have bought it If they bought it 3 years ago, 4 years ago, bravo, they're going to make a killing on that property. Good for them. But if they bought it last week, yeah, they might have been paying top dollar for it, and interest rates are on the climb. And Lexington is a good market, but it's a secondary, tertiary market, and so we gotta sit back and wait. I hope they have what you have to do. Okay, so getting back to your question about the problem with loans today. The only thing that I would be very leery about whenever I'm looking at getting into any type of financing today is you need a longer term than usual. Don't bring me a 3 or 5 year deal. I'm not interested, and not only that, but some of the investors that I work with aren't interested either, because they're looking for places to park their money right now to take advantage of what's going to happen with inflation.
Right. And I guess that would eliminate you, from the ever very popular bridge debt that people are using right now.
Yeah, but that's okay. Bridge debt's okay if it's a true value add. If you're just trying to do bridge debt just to get into the deal, no. That's not the way to do this. I mean, if you have to do an interest only just to make your numbers work, and then you're going to, convert in 3 years or so, no. Don't do that. You're overpaying for the property. You can fix anything on a multifamily deal except overpaying for the property. So just don't do it. You're better off walking away, waiting a couple of years, and picking up that type of property when somebody else loses their shirt on it.
Yeah, which may yet happen. Other than putting in a 10 basis points a year, which you said is just a bare minimum as an increase in the exit cap rate, what other things are you guys underwriting, or what things are you doing you feel like are unique that you're underwriting that are kind of keeping you guys out of potential hot water?
One of the things is being a lot more conservative on the rental increases. I mean, sticking around 2-3% is going to be the top number. And if you listened, I did a podcast with Ivy Zellman. The woman is brilliant. She saw the 2008 crash coming. I had her on my podcast. I said, Ivy, this is different than 2008. We're not going to have the same problems we had back in 2008. And I said, we have much more sound underwriting. The demand for our product is so high. And then she just kind of laid me flat when she says, we are already overbuilt. And I said, Ivy, wait, whoa. And I mean, I've got a waiting list. You look at all these properties with 100% occupancy. She said, no, we are already overbuilt. If you go look at all the starts that are on paper that are supposed to happen in the next 3 years, it exceeds demand. And we are already overbuilt. I'm like, wow, okay, that's interesting. And yeah, so she kind of like laid me flat with some of the statistics that she had. Is ZellmanAssociates.com. What she said made me open up my eyes. And one thing that she said, Sam, that just, I was like, ooh, she says, all of these homes, this high demand for homes where, you're bidding way over price. The reason why this is happening is many of these home purchases are not first home buyers or first home owners, meaning these are their second homes and sometimes their third homes. And so these people who are buying homes now, they own 3 homes. I own 3 homes. I'm sitting there listening to her tell me the story, and I'm thinking to myself, wow. When the market changes, when interest rates go up, when things starting to tighten up, you're going to see people starting to dump those second and third homes to protect themselves. And that's when it's going to come really home to roost.
Right. Yeah. When the market gets flooded with inventory, that goes back to the old basics of supply and demand.
It's going to hurt us all. So
yeah, absolutely. Tell me about a time or money mistake you've made, or maybe it cost you both time and money.
Okay. One thing that I found out the hard way early on in my multifamily world was how assumptions work. Like if you buy a property on an assumption, you're doing that seller a huge favor. That guy ought to be kissing you behind at the closing table to get you. Because one of the things about an assumption is the replacement reserves. So if this guy has been owning the property for the last 3 to 5 years, and he's been banking the replacement reserves, instead of using it to build up his collateral and protect the collateral, he's been banking it. Now he's got $100,000 in the replacement reserves. Do you know what happens to that money at the closing table?
It becomes his.
It's his. And do you know what you have to do?
Put in the replacement reserves.
That just went, if you were doing a new money purchase, would you have to do that? No, you wouldn't have to come up with another $100,000 on day one just because this guy didn't spend a dime on his property for the last 5 years.
Right.
That's crazy. So I make sure now in all my letters of intent that one of the things, if it's an assumption, is the seller has to spend that reserve down to zero or transfer it to me at closing. That's the number one thing. The other thing too is the problem with assumptions is when you're negotiating an assumption, there's always a third party at the negotiating table. And sometimes that third party is silent right up until the closing date. So on one assumption that I negotiated was 12% down. All I had to come up with was 12%. And I thought, what a great negotiator I am. Look at me go. And my returns were phenomenal. 2 weeks before closing, the bank comes back and says, hey, we noticed that you're putting only 12% down. That's not going to work for us. You need to put more skin in the game. You need to put down 20%. And I was like, well, how can I do that? I've got a contract. I've got a purchase price. You've got a fixed mortgage amount. The difference is only 12%. Where do you expect me to put this 8%? They said, great question. You know what we are? We're a bank. And you're going to put it with us. And you're going to let it sit there. And it's just going to sit there. You can't spend it on the property. We just want that there. And so I had to come up with an additional 8% 2 weeks before the closing, or I'd lose my earnest money. Had I known that if I had to do the assumption, if I didn't have to do the assumption, everything would have been fine. But because I had to do the assumption, I had to come up with that extra money that just sat in a bank account. It just killed the cash on cash return because it's additional money in with no return on it. And it was a terrible deal. And the other thing too is, so now I have a provision to protect myself in my LOIs that state if the bank changes any of the economic terms, I get to walk.
Right.
And here's the thing about this, Sam, is that you go back and you read any contract with a bank, any mortgage and any note, it clearly states the deal will be is assumable with no change in the economic terms. It says that right there. But you know who the third party is at the table? It's a bank, and banks change contracts anytime they want. So that's something that I found out very early on, and that cost me a lot of money. It killed the deal for me. So that lay on top of that. Here's another one. Let me give you another one.
Please.
Same deal. And because this assumption went on for 5 months, the bank just dragged their feet. It was Wachovia. Okay. Do you remember the nickname for Wachovia?
No.
Walk all over you.
Walk all over you. Yeah, right.
That's why they're no longer in business. So it took them forever. But here's the mistake I made early on in the contract is that I was only allowed to inspect the property in the first 30 days. After that, I'm done. I can't inspect it anymore. So for the next 4 months, whatever happened on that property, I couldn't go on and see it. So now my contracts say, hey, I got to see it right up until the end of, right up in the closing date, I can get in there. And so we kept getting from him certified rent rolls showing that the property was 96% occupied right up until the closing date. 30 days later, I'm calling up my property management company screaming saying, hey, guys, you got to go out and knock on doors. You've only collected 50% of the rents this month. I need more. He goes, Charlie, there's nobody left to collect from. I said, well, no, there was 96% occupancy when we took over, Charlie. I've never seen a case of fraud so badly in my life. And I said, wait a minute, you can't just throw out the term fraud. You got to give me some evidence. He says, Charlie, I found the evidence for you. And they faxed me over 8 leases. And these 8 leases, you could tell that the previous property management company had taken these leases and just photocopied them because the same whiteout was in the same place on all 8. And 3 of the 8, they forgot to change the name of the property for my property, and it was the name of a property that the owner owned down the street. So that was a perfect example of phantom leases. And the property never recovered. That was a disaster. So yeah, thanks for bringing that back up, Sam. I really appreciate you making me walk down that memory lane, buddy. So,
but those are the things that I think the value in having a mentor, having a coach, having someone looking over your shoulder doing this.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how many hundreds of thousands or millions that may have cost you, but it's that one mistake that I think that, that's all you need when you bring somebody like yourself on board to say, hey, buddy, don't do that.
Yeah,
Don't
absolutely.
do that.
I mean, success, as Bill Gates says, success is a lousy teacher. And that, if I'm able to keep my clients, my students out of bad deals, so they do everything right. And, part of what I do with my students is I remove the exuberance. I remove the exuberance from the decision making. They're all excited. They're ready. Oh, well, let's do this. It's going to be great. I say, no, this one's a bad deal. No, you don't understand. Oh, yes, I do. Oh, yes, I do. So that's the key.
Right. And so on that front, are you strictly doing, the coaching and helping your students, or are you also an active investor yourself?
Oh yeah, I'm an active investor, but the thing is that I invest in my students' deals, but I use my own money. I don't cut a deal where, like if you hire me on, I keep a certain percentage of the deals that I do for you. No. That one could get me in big trouble with a bar association, because even though I'm not their attorney, I still have to live by the canon of ethics of a lawyer. And if I can't give objective legal advice or advice, if they know that the advice I'm giving them is contingent upon whether I'm going to get paid or not, then any advice I give is construed could be construed as bad advice, because it's not objective. I have to always remain objective, arm's length. But I do invest in some of my students' deals. I see some good ones, and I definitely want to get my money in on those deals. So yeah,
for sure. That's the two things that this industry revolves around: is deals and money. And so, when you find a good deal, it's time to get in. What's something you're curious about right now?
Oh, I guess the thing that I'm most curious about is the future. I'm excited about it. I love that Dan Sullivan has a saying. He says, old is your desire for days in the past is greater than your desire for days in the future. And I think about when the doctor came in and told my dad at 82 years old that he had like 24 hours left. His first reaction was, darn it, I just wanted 10 more years. And I'm like, man, that's the attitude I want to have on my deathbed also. Like, man, I just want to keep going. I'm having too much fun. So I'm curious about the future. I'm so looking forward to it. That's whatever awesome. Whatever God gives me. I love that saying. The first casualty of the of 9/11 from the fire department of New York, the first firefighter was the chaplain. I mean, this is how they're saying it. He was hit by debris. And they said, on his eulogy, he said, you want to make God laugh? Tell him what you're going to do tomorrow. So, yeah.
Right. Yeah. That's pretty good. I love it. Tell me a book you're reading right now.
I'm reading so many of them. Okay. So I do Audible. I have books. I have a book of the month club for my students. We're having it this past coming up. It's an oldie but a goodie. It's Ready, Fire, Aim by Michael Masterson. Right. And it's, I'll tell you, that one is, I teach my students that multifamily is a sales and marketing business. And I set them up with a CRM with 1,000 properties in it in their marketplace. I set them up with a VA. I give them all the tools to be a success, but they have to understand that if they don't realize that their job is sales and marketing, they'll never make it in this business. And the whole thing that Michael Masterson talks about is, so many new entrepreneurs are so concerned about their website, about their logo, about their business cards, and they never think about who the customer is. And so that is from Ready, Fire, Aim. That's that one. I just did right now. Willpower. What's the one on Willpower by Benjamin Hardy? I can't remember the full title, but that's a good one. That one teaches you that it's not about you. Willpower has less to do about you than it does about the environment that you're in. So set yourself up in an environment that you can achieve success. And another great one that I'm doing, Mauro Guion. This one is you have to, and you hear me talking about multiple books. I'm switching that Audible all the time, going back and forth, especially because you take a book like 2030 by Mauro Guion. This is like the follow-up to Big Shifts Ahead, which was another great book. But Big Shifts Ahead was written for the period about 2015 to 2025, talking about what's going on in the marketplace. I had that author on my podcast as well. So obviously, we're coming up to 2025. The next book behind it is 2030. And the thing that he says in that book, which I so agree with, is that the definition of an entrepreneur is virtually the exact same definition as an immigrant. When you look at the two, that's why for this country to survive with all the trillions that we're spending, the only way we're able to survive this ridiculous spending program from our government, the only way is by having a very exuberant immigration policy, bringing in the best and the brightest from around the world. That's the only way this country is going to survive. Otherwise, we're just going to implode. So I could keep going, man. I got so many great books. I'm always grabbing little kernels out of them. But those are the three that so far this week I've already been into.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Charles, thank you for your time today. I've had an absolute blast learning how you coach your students, you taking the time to really, tell us the hard-earned mistakes, what those have cost you, and how not to repeat them. You've given us obviously some great reading material there. And I've certainly really enjoyed this conversation. So
yeah,
your time.
Me too. So did I get a shirt? Did I qualify for a shirt?
You did.
It's a brick and investment,
top, but it's okay.
Yeah.
I
bet you look awesome, buddy. You look awesome.
Charles, if our listeners want to get in touch with you, what is the best way to do that?
Multifamilyos.com, multifamily operating system, but the website is multifamilyos.com. Track me down there, and we can chat more. Or multifamilyinvestingacademy.com. That's the parent agency of the Multifamily OS program. And that's the best way to get a hold of me.
Awesome. Charles, thanks for your time. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Sam. Good to see you, man.